Hey everyone, ready to really level up your English?
We're going deep on this one.
We are. 15 best ways to learn English, like a pro. Sounds promising, right?
Definitely a lot of tips out there.
So many. But are they all created equal? That's where Expert Speaker comes in.
Weeding through all the noise to find what really works.
Love it. I'm all about that aha moment where you find a technique that just clicks.
Totally.
So this 15 ways article, it gives us a great overview, but I want to go deeper. What really moves the needle?
But
What gets people fluent?
let's start with immersion. The article talks about building an English-speaking world around you. Sounds good, but what's that actually look like?
Yeah, just watching Netflix in English probably isn't enough, right?
Probably not. It's about active immersion.
Active. So how we learned our first language,
Yeah.
constantly interacting, making mistakes.
Exactly. You were surrounded by it, experimenting, getting feedback. Now as adults, we need to recreate that.
Interesting. So instead of just having a show on in the background, I should be trying to really understand it, maybe taking notes, repeating phrases.
Definitely. And don't forget speaking,
Oh, right.
even if it feels awkward at first. Daily speaking practice, that's what the article emphasizes.
Makes sense. Things like finding a language exchange partner.
Exactly. Or even talking to yourself.
Talking to myself, huh?
It can work.
Oh,
But let's talk about language exchange. I've heard people are sometimes intimidated by that.
intimidated. Yeah, I can see that. What if your English isn't good enough yet?
That's a common worry. But remember, it's mutual learning. You're both there to practice.
Right. Support each other.
Yeah. And honestly, some of the most interesting conversations I've had have been with people from totally different backgrounds.
True. It's all about those new perspectives. Okay, so how do you actually find a good language exchange partner?
Tons of platforms out there. Hello Talk, Pandem,
I've heard of those.
or even just online communities, ones that focus on your interests.
So finding someone you actually connect with, not just a random English speaker.
Yeah, where the magic happens. You're engaged, enjoying yourself, the learning flows naturally.
I love that. Reminds me of how much I've learned from podcasts.
Speaking of,
The article mentions those too. We're both fans, so what makes a podcast effective for learning English?
more than passive listening. Think about all the different accents you hear, the vocab, the natural way people speak.
It's true. Not like a textbook.
Not at all. It's building that listening flexibility. Understanding English spoken in different ways.
I like that. Like training for a marathon by doing different types of runs.
Perfect analogy. And you can choose podcasts you're actually interested in, so the learning doesn't feel like work.
Okay, confession time. I'm guilty of just passively listening sometimes.
Happens to the best of us.
So what are some ways to be more active?
Well, depends on your goals. Trying to improve comprehension. Expand your vocabulary.
Mostly comprehension and vocab for me. Following fast conversations, understanding slang.
Okay, so you could try shadowing, repeating what the speaker says.
Shadowing, okay.
Transcribing, writing it all down, or even pausing and summarizing in your own words.
Those are good. Summarizing especially forces you to process it.
Exactly. Okay, moving on. The article also talks about reading. Beyond just enjoying a good book, how do we make it work for us?
Right.
One technique, reading aloud.
Reading aloud sounds a bit old school.
It might, but it really engages your brain differently. You're working on pronunciation, intonation.
Yeah, sometimes I struggle with getting those right.
It helps. And you internalize the grammar and vocab in a more natural way.
It's about getting a feel for the language.
Absolutely. Okay, ready for another one?
Hit me.
Thinking in English.
Whoa, hold on. The article mentions this, but how do you even start doing that?
Start small. Don't try to have full conversations in your head. Just describe simple things. What are you doing? What do you see? What do you feel?
Okay, so if I'm making coffee, I could think, I'm grinding the beans, pouring the water,
Exactly. Those little exercises are powerful.
building a new operating system for my brain.
You got it. And as you practice, your thoughts will flow easier. Your spoken English will become more natural.
This is amazing stuff. There's so much to unpack here.
We got a lot more to cover.
Okay, so much to think about already.
Right.
We've talked about practicing actively, speaking, language exchange.
All are important.
But what about more passive learning,
Yeah.
especially with vocabulary?
The article mentions keeping a vocabulary journal.
Yeah, who has time for that?
I know, right?
I want something efficient. If I'm putting in the effort, it better stick.
I hear you. So let's talk about memory. Spaced repetition.
Spaced repetition. The article mentioned it, but I need the breakdown. How does it work? How can I actually use it?
Okay, think about how you usually learn new words. You see it, look it up, maybe write it down,
And then,
then you forget it.
ugh, It's true, like my brain's a sieve.
It's natural we
You
forget
can't
over
hurt.
time, but that's what spaced repetition uses, that forgetting curve.
Uses it.
Yeah. You review the information right before you're about to forget it.
So instead of cramming, I spread it out.
Exactly. And digital flashcards, like Anki, they do this automatically. You put the words in and the app does the rest. Prompts you when it's time to review.
A personal vocabulary trainer in my pocket?
That's it.
What if I want to focus on business English for work?
You can create custom decks in Anki. Put in industry-specific terms, whatever you need.
So I can tailor it to my job. That's cool. What about grammar? The article talks about learning it in context, not just memorizing rules.
Grammar.
I kind of like the rules, though. Aren't they necessary sometimes?
Some basic rules, yeah, maybe
Yeah.
at first. But it's about understanding how grammar works in real life, not just reciting the rules.
Like, I didn't learn my native language by memorizing grammar.
Right. It was about observing how people used it, picking up the patterns.
Okay, but how do we do that now, as adults learning English?
Immerse yourself in real content. Books, movies, podcasts, pay attention to how they use grammar.
Instead of just drilling myself on verb tenses.
Exactly. And there's some cool tools to help. Apps like Grammarly or Duolingo.
I've used Duolingo.
They present grammar in real-life contexts, give examples, feedback on your writing.
What about Grammarly? What's that like? Isn't it just a spell checker?
It's more than that. It finds all sorts of grammar and style issues, even suggests better words to use.
Wow, that's pretty advanced. But won't I become reliant on it, like not actually learning the grammar myself?
It's a balance. Use it as a learning tool, not a crutch. Understand WHY, it's making those suggestions.
Learn from my mistakes. Okay, makes sense. What about setting goals? The article talks about small, achievable goals.
It's so important. If we set unrealistic goals like fluency in a few months, we're setting ourselves up to fail.
Yeah, I've been there. You get excited, then hit a wall, lose all motivation.
Exactly. Break it down. Instead of the huge end goal, focus on what you can do today.
Small steps every day. So instead of master all the tenses this month, I'd say learn one tense this week and really practice it.
Yes, you build momentum, confidence. It keeps you going.
A positive cycle.
It is. And celebrate those small wins. No matter how small, it keeps you positive.
Love it. Okay, we've covered so much. Any final advice?
Remember, language learning is personal. What works for one person might not work for another. So experiment.
Try different things.
Yeah. Find what clicks for you. And don't be scared of making mistakes. That's how we learn.
Back again for more English boosting tips.
And we're tackling a big one now. Watching stuff with subtitles.
Ooh, yeah, the article talks about that. I'm a little on the fence about subtitles, to be honest.
I get it. Some people love them, some people hate them. But they can be super helpful if you use them right.
Okay, I'm listening. How do I use subtitles to actually learn, not just zone out and follow the story?
Think of them as a bridge.
A bridge to what?
To better understanding. At first, watching in English can be overwhelming, right? Especially if people are talking fast or you don't recognize the
Oh,
accent.
for sure. It's like, what did they even say?
So start with subtitles in your native language. You can follow the plot, get used to the rhythm of how English sounds.
But won't I just rely on my own language then?
That's why you progress. Once you're comfy, switch to English subtitles.
So like using subtitles as a crutch at first, then getting rid of the crutch.
Exactly. Now you're seeing the words while you hear them. Good for vocab, good for pronunciation.
It's like having the cheat codes for English.
Kinda. And as your listening gets better, you can even try watching with NO subtitles.
That's the dream, right? Understanding it all naturally.
It is. But it's a journey. Subtitles can help you along the way. Okay, ready for another tool?
Lay it on me. What else can we use?
YouTube.
YouTube. I thought that was just for fun stuff.
Oh, there's tons of language learning stuff on there.
No way, really.
Yeah. Grammar tutorials, vocab lessons, pronunciation tips, even stuff about culture.
I had no idea. Any channels you recommend? Like if I need help with a specific grammar point, I can just search for it?
You got it. There are videos for everything. BBC Learning English is a good one.
BBC. Okay. Any others?
English with Lucy, Speak English with Vanessa, tons more.
It's like having a teacher available anytime.
And it's free.
So many resources out there. Okay, we've gone through a lot in this deep dive. Let's recap.
We've talked about active practice, like actually speaking and doing language exchange.
We talked about passive learning too. Using podcasts, using subtitles strategically.
We even got into tech a bit, with Anki for vocab and YouTube for, well, pretty much anything.
This has been really eye-opening. I feel like I have a whole new plan for learning English now.
That's what we like to hear. The key takeaway is that language learning is personal. It's your journey.
Find what works for you. Try things out, make mistakes, have fun with it.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to let your voice be heard in English. That's what it's all about. Thanks for joining us.